Welcome into Missing the Point. I'm your host, Michael Marcangelo, joined as always by my guy, Hollywood Rayshon Buchanan. It's the Patriots bye week, which means that we have a special guest lined up for you. She is not only the lead reporter for the New England Patriots from MassLive, she not only worked for the Boston Herald, but she is the most requested and the most sought after and the most frequent guest here at Missing the Point, Miss Karen Guregian. Karen, how are you today?
Mike, I'm doing well. I'm doing okay. I had a weekend semi off, sort of off, so that's
Yeah.
always good.
Mhm.
And like the Patriots, I was sort of self scouting. I was recharging and self scouting, and so I'm ready for the final month of the season.
It's I can promise you've done more scouting than them, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, I did a big report card on
I know.
Yes, we're gonna get into yeah,
so
we
that's
gotta
what I'm saying. That's the scouting type of scouting I did. So anyway.
So we made a big error, a scheduling error. I'll blame our producer because he's not here to defend himself by not having you on at the beginning of the season to understand what your overall expectations were, Patriots.
And to give a
So
prediction like I usually
I
do.
I know I know
Oh,
I know that's
And you and
that's
you-
our
you're
bad.
losing out on money because I've kind of predicted it right at least
What did
once.
what did you predict this year? Do you remember?
Uh it was either 5 or 6, but since it's closer to 5, I'll say 5.
Yeah, that feels right.
It
right.
So
wasn't, put it this way, it wasn't a lot.
given that they are 3-10, and I
Yep.
did read your report card. Obviously, that was published on masslive.com on Monday.
Yep. Yep.
What would you say is their most glaring issue facing this team right now?
Lack of talent.
You would put that over lack of experience for coaching?
Uh, I think talent makes coaches look good.
Mm,
Or put
Yeah,
it this way, makes coaches look better,
yeah,
it's
you
true.
know?
yeah.
Um, and I think talent would have helped the kind of rookiness of the coaching staff a little bit. Um, I mean, I think I think you can tell it's hard to tell with the first year staff, but sometimes, as we saw with Bill Belichick for so many years, um, with obviously with the help of Tom Brady, but I'm talking about the defense in particular, is that Belichick could make an average or pedestrian defense look much better than it was because he was a master at hiding the weaknesses. He
Mm,
was a master at subterfuge and confusing quarterbacks and moving guys around and in that way, again, he could get away with not having a pass rush, which is part of this problem. Not being able to tackle. not, I mean, well, it's just or not being able to have linebackers cover. So, uh, I mean, he could mask mistakes better than anyone I've seen. And you would have thought maybe some of that would have rubbed off on Gerard Mayo and DeMarcus Covington. Perhaps when they had a full team and didn't, weren't dealing with injuries to key people and guys being in trouble and so on and so forth. Perhaps the defense wouldn't look as bad as they are or they've looked.
Yeah.
But you know, this rookie staff hasn't adjusted to injuries and absences as well as their successor or their previous coach.
Right?
yeah. I, yeah, I want to say everything because once again, like I said, we looked through the article. I thought majority of the grades were spot on. A couple of D's that were given, I thought you were kind. It could have been an F. Uh, like that, and this is coming from I teach when I don't do this, so it's just like I'm more of a
Mhm.
harsh grader. But
Yeah.
um, Yeah, I mean, listen, I would say it's probably just both sides of the line, right? I think
Mhm,
that's the bearing,
mhm.
a weakness for both of them. I mean, for the team, like I just think they
Well,
can't.
the
And
talent
yeah,
talent applies to the line too,
right, yeah, exactly,
right?
yeah. So, um, I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess for those, I mean, this is gonna be something that listen to this and say, how can they not say coaching is the number one thing? I mean, once again, coaching is honest, or they read the article, they can talk about the coaching at nauseum, but
Well,
um,
that was a D.
yeah, yeah, exactly, right,
That was a
exactly,
D.
yeah,
It's not,
and
not like I
yeah,
was getting,
so,
but I actually, not to defend giving D's instead of F's to the
mhm,
places I gave D's, offensive line being one, defensive line,
mhm,
coaching staff.
right,
Um, I think the coaching staff got away with it because of Drake
Drake.
Maye. They
right,
developed Drake. So, I mean, it's not a total fail, but I think the reason I might be generous
mhm,
or easy in not giving them F's is the players, is the offensive line underachieving? No, they're not, because they're not good. And to penalize them for not being good or just playing to the level that they are,
mhm,
it's kind of tough for me to flunk them because, again, this is just me talking. I think some of these false start penalties, some of these holding calls, these repeated calls are because these guys are overmatched and they're trying to find ways not to get Drake killed. So the false starts is a tackle looking to get a little bit of a jump on the defensive end that's going to make them look silly,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
mhm,
The holding is okay. I can't let Drake get killed. They're not good. They're not good enough. And as I said, so for me, it's hard to flatline them with an F.
right,
The defensive line, they were missing Barmore most of the year.
mhm,
They traded Judon, not that he's turned out to be any good. Um, but they're getting pushed back. But you have guys in there, Daniel Aquali, who's a reserve. You have a reserve, all bunch of reserves around Devon Godchild. Am I gonna, give them an F? Because again, everyone around Godchild is either a guy they picked up off the street or a guy that's not at really starting caliber.
yeah,
So if there's a category for the front office, maybe
mhm,
that's where the F would go,
Oh yeah.
mm, yeah, oh
right?
yeah, I mean, for sure, I mean, but that, I mean, that
I didn't have that category.
yeah. Well, no, I mean, maybe as season's ending, right? Because obviously, we'll see what happens. But obviously, that leads into what we were going to ask next. So it's like, obviously, they'll have a plethora of questions they have to answer in the off season. So, just what kind of shakeup do you expect to happen in the off season? And then do you still believe that Mayo's job is still in good standing, going into next season?
All right. Put it this way. Number one, he was Robert Kraft's personal selection,
Hmm.
and it was his personal selection years ago.
Yep.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I
Crazy.
don't think he wants to uh, part with Gerard Mayo after 1 year, especially again, he inherited a really crappy situation. The roster he inherited the worst roster in the league when he walked in the door
Hmm.
and was named the head coach. Does that mean he hasn't made mistakes? Oh, he's made mistakes. But I just think it's too early. I don't think it's just too early to say to not give him a chance next year.
Hmm.
Now, for the other coaches, I think some changes need to be made. And again, Gerard has to be honest with assessing his coaching staff.
Hmm.
And the bigger problem was that Elliott made most of the selections on the offensive side
Right.
because Gerard just didn't have the contacts, He hasn't been a coach that long. But again, do you blame Gerard for that, or do you blame the people who hired him in putting him in this spot a little bit too early?
Yeah.
Because he didn't have connections across the league to bring in people or to persuade people to come here.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems to me like they just never, well, not never, but it just feel like they didn't even bother to really reach out to. I mean, obviously, he brought in the AVP or whatever, but I know there was names like Nick Haley that was brought up. Obviously, the pipe dream was really, Ben Johnson from Detroit, who looks like he's probably going to be in Chicago at season's end. I don't know. I just think, to me, like them not doing their due diligence on really finding. Once again, if you wanted Mayo to be the guy, fine. I mean, whatever. Like
Right.
that's cool. But it's kind of like the same thing with the Celtics, right? Remember, Joe Mazzulla not being that experienced, but in this last season, they brought in Sam Cassell, brought in Charles Lee, brought in some other guys
Right.
that can help. So I think maybe if they did that, I think we would feel better about Mayo's
Right.
that role going forward.
So in that way, I think we'll see, because there's no question Mayo could use an experienced former head coach who doesn't mind being a co-coach or an assistant coach. I mean, I thought that was kind of Ben McAdoo, but anyway, someone who can help him with game situations, or just, Gerard, it doesn't hurt to be aggressive here, I mean, for the one from the goal line, your team is overmatched in every single game. Again, you have to look at what you are and the circumstances and who you're playing. And you're not gonna beat certain teams kicking field goals, not going for it for 4th and 1. And again, if you don't make it 4th and 1 and lose, what's the difference? You're losing anyway.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
Right.
Well, totally agree. Yes.
Um,
Yeah, me and Mike have been odds all year about how certain things, but
it just, again, in some ways, it doesn't make sense. They're so conservative on offense, and yet they're aggressive on defense. What's the difference there? I'll point out a couple. One, I think Gerard, because his expertise is not offensive football, not yet anyway, is basically leaving that to the people who are handling the offense. Okay. And I don't think he'll jump in and say, no, let's go 4th down, when he has the capability of doing that. I don't think he wants to jump on Alex Van Pelt, because again, who has the experience in these situations? It's Van Pelt. It's not Mayo. Whereas defensively, number one, I don't think he stepped in enough when it's come to DeMarcus Covington. But again, just picking the wrong times to go zero blitz and the wrong quarterbacks to go zero blitz.
Yep.
I mean, Matthew Stafford, why are you blitzing? Again, do they look at numbers? But I don't want to give them an excuse, but when you don't have people who can get to the quarterback themselves, when you don't have pass rushers, you have to try and do something to get to the quarterback or bother him a little bit. And I think that's why they've been gambling more on defense with these zero blitzes and just hoping somebody will still get to the quarterback or bother him enough so they don't make these plays on 3rd down and 4th down or whatever it is. But I think they've just picked their wrong spots to gamble and the wrong quarterbacks to gamble against.
It's interesting because during that period of time, I would say from like 2009 to 2014, when our defenses weren't great, Bill did a great job of perceived pressure. where it looked like that they were going to be rushing
And
5
then
or
they went
6
back.
times,
Yeah.
and then they all
off.
went back.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
the time where Mayo was a player. So isn't
Right.
it interesting that like he doesn't? I know I'm simplifying it, but why
Mm,
aren't we seeing more of that? Because he doesn't have the horses, sure, but he
right.
knows what it looked like.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and it's almost like a microcosm of what we saw between Matt Patricia and Brian Flores. Matt Patricia was much more conservative, right?
Yep.
He didn't gamble, he didn't blitz at all. When he left and Flores took over, I mean, he like sent the house all the time. I
All the time.
mean, right? You know, and perhaps that was because he had better personnel or better players or better guys in the secondary, with Steph Gilmore and company, you know, that, he was able to do that. But it's interesting, though. Flores has taken that philosophy wherever he's gone. Patricia has had the conservative philosophy wherever he's gone, even as an offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So, and they all were taught by Belichick, but both of them kind of came out different.
Right.
So perhaps that's what we're seeing, both with Covington and Gerard Mayo.
In the when talking about like the type of a shakeup, right? Because I've been on the hill this entire season that there's no way Kraft is going to let go of Mayo
No, there's none.
because he publicly came out and said that he's the chosen one. He
Right.
handpicked him to replace Bill, right? So, and we know how it appears he likes to be perceived in public. But I have a question. I don't know if you can't answer this, but I want to ask anyway. Was Bill O'Brien ever asked to stay on with Gerard Mayo, and how different do you think the offense would look had he done that?
I think he was. But I mean, Bill O'Brien was. What I don't know is if he was going to be able to pick his staff, because when he came last year, he didn't get to pick his staff. He was
Right.
just given the people he was given and had to work. He got one guy. He got to have one coach, and that was his tight ends coach. But the offensive line coach was in place. The receivers coaches were in place. The running backs coach was in place. So Bill didn't get to, and I don't know if they said that's not going to change or again, I don't know the dynamics of that.
Yeah.
But I think O'Brien said, you know what, I'm going to go back to college and see where that takes me.
He did they gave him an interview, I think, on NBC Sports Boston early in the season, and they had asked him about that. I think Michael Holley had asked him, and he said he was like, I left because he said he wanted to give Gerard a chance to pick his own staff, right? He was like, I'm a Belichick guy, so he was like, Gerard should come in, new staff, refresh, renewed. So
Right.
That's not real, though. That's not real. That's what he tells the public.
I'm saying that was his answer on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do think there were Belichick guys
Yes.
and perhaps not Belichick guys. And O'Brien was clearly a Belichick guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't mean he didn't like Mayo or couldn't get along with Mayo, but there's allegiances there, and it's funny. One son stayed and one son left.
Right.
One of Belichick's kids stayed, one of them left. But I think some of the people who, I think, it was kind of a cordial, if you want to stay or, I don't think it was like, please, please, please stay. I think, it was like,
Right.
We'll work with it if it happens. And I think some people just decided to, walk out the door. And I think some of them left thinking that Bill was going to get a job and they would go with him.
Right.
But as we've seen, Bill did not get the Atlanta job or any other job. But some of the people who kind of were in waiting, whether it was people formerly here, I fully expect Josh McDaniels to go wherever he goes. I
Yep.
fully expect Matt Patricia to go wherever he goes. And I fully expect Joe Judge to leave college and go, even if it is college, and go wherever Bill goes. I mean, these are Bill guys. They're going to stay with him through thick and thin. And I almost think you might see a front office person too, or a few leave, whether it's Matt Groh, who
Wait,
who basically owes the job to Bill Belichick.
Right.
So,
Elliot Wolf can go too.
Yep.
well, I'm not sure since he has the position of power.
Yeah.
I mean, unless Belichick gives him that same role with that same money, we'll see.
I just asked the Billy O'Brien question just from a developmental standpoint, right? Because it can't be argued that Deshaun Watson never looked better than when Billy O'Brien was his head coach.
Hmm.
Right.
Right. So why not keep a guy and do what you say? Let him bring in his team. If you know you have the third overall pick, you're going to take a quarterback. Like, this is the
Yeah.
guy that I would have wanted to
Yeah.
develop him. Now, early in the season, I was calling for AVP's head. Like,
Mm.
I still don't think he has a great feel for the game, but it does look like Drake Maye is getting better.
Mm.
So is that because Drake Maye is just that much more physically gifted than what we're used to over the last 5 years here at in New England, or is it because him and AVP are starting to mesh?
I think it's both. And I know that's kind of a non-answer, but I honestly believe it's both. Because watching Drake Maye, as many of us did at training camp or even before in the early camps and the rookie camps, watching his feet then and kind of watching how he's progressed in that, is it just Drake or are these guys really hammering it home? So I would say it's probably a little bit of both. And you can see too, it's just, I think Drake has gotten better just about every single week he's played or has done something, maybe not the whole picture better, but there's some phase or element that you see he's either developed or improved. And I think we've all seen that every single week. And it's hard to just say, oh, that's because he's a fast learner and he's good, whatever. Well, someone's got to be teaching him or
Right.
showing him on film.
Yeah.
So, and, AVP, while not having a reputation as a play caller, because he really didn't do that, he did come with a reputation of developing quarterbacks. And he went through like 5 of them last year in Cleveland, and somehow, they got into the playoffs with Joe Flacco. So, he has to be doing something right, but it's not just him. And he also got to bring in his quarterback coach, TC McCarthy, or somebody that he's worked with. He got to bring in the offensive line coach, or at least have these people, or Elliott might have brought them in as a full package, just to make Alex comfortable. The offensive line coach, a quarterback coach. He knew McAdoo from time in Green Bay. I think everyone but the wide receivers coach might have been, someone that was either handpicked by Alex or someone that Alex gave a thumbs up to because he had worked with them previously and was comfortable with them.
Good, right?
Gotcha. Want to go back up to the front office. So obviously, and speak about the owner. Kraft has made a lot of different statements, and I feel like he's more worried about the Hall of Fame and obviously the betterment of the team at this moment. But the biggest thing he's mainly said is that always going to be a longer rebuild. We know this. Do you believe that that's fluff that he's saying to the media? And do you think he's actually committed to the rebuild going forward?
Um, I don't. I've never. I've never thought he's somebody who likes to lose
Mm.
or likes to be not relevant or have his team be not relevant. So I think he cares. Um, I think he needs to show a little more in terms of, uh, they have all this cap space next year. Y- you better use it. You know. Um, so I mean, that's the way he can be committed. Um, perhaps in his mind, putting some kind of timeline on the coaching staff or on Mayo, in his mind, maybe is it a 2-year window he has? Is it a 3-year window? I think he has to resolve in his mind, this is craft, how much rope he's going to give. And I think the same thing applies for Elliot Wolf. Um, because, ultimately, they went about replacing the greatest coach of all time, who was clearly not helping the cause with his drafting and because he was the boss. He had to go. I'm not saying Belichick had to go, but they knew it was coming, right? I'm sure that they thought it was going to be a little longer to let him get Shula's record and then have a nice, sweet send off. But it just got to be untenable with Belichick still here, and they really needed to cut the cord. That's fine. But where was the plan outside of
Right.
Mayo? Where was the plan? And it's the same thing with Belichick and Brady. When they parted with Brady, what was the plan? Are you telling me they didn't have a plan? That's how it looked. They waited till July to grab Cam Newton. And even then, you know, he was at a point where he was pretty much at the end of the
Yeah, it was done.
he was done.
Mhm.
You're telling me, and this is, I mean, obviously it's hard enough to replace the greatest quarterback who ever lived or the greatest coach who ever lived, but they haven't even given they didn't give themselves a chance in either case, in
Right.
my estimation.
Well, I mean, the replacing Brady thing though, that ties into Bill's philosophy that I think he felt like a lot of Patriot fans felt like you could win 9 games with Brian Hoyer.
Yeah,
Like
right. Yeah.
we can coach above that, right?
Yeah.
And when you look back to that offense compared to the Jacoby Brissett version this year, we were clamoring for that 2020 offense again because at least they moved the ball. At
Right.
least they moved the sticks, right?
Yeah.
Do you think so? I guess this is a weird. I'm going to try and frame it the right way. Knowing how Robert Kraft and his family and his team feel about being perceived as winners,
Yeah.
how do you think he's handling the type of feedback that he's getting from both fans and media? And he went from Brady and Belichick always having the A squad in terms of the commentary, stadiums always filled, and now it's you get the C team. Tickets are $15 if you want them that same day. You can get them for that.
Well,
Shouldn't that escalate how quickly he moves to rebuild this team and his willingness to spend? And why haven't we seen that?
it should. Well, you didn't see it. Well, I can't. There were factors. It's not like they didn't try to bring Ridley here or they didn't try to get certain people. They didn't want to come here, right?
Well,
They
he didn't
didn't.
want to pay Ridley what Tennessee paid him.
Right, right. But they. It's not like they were. It's not like they weren't in the bidding.
Right.
But
Right.
then I think what ultimately happened is when they found out that like Ridley wasn't going to come here no matter what. Why are they? Why are they going to keep up in the price?
So do you think
Right.
he is the right type
I
of
mean,
owner?
that's almost more embarrassing.
100%. But I think right now we're in the situation where we're going to have to pay 15% more than any other team to
Right.
get star players here. Do you think
Yeah.
we'll see that willingness this offseason?
I do. I
Really?
do. Yeah. At least I've gotten indications of that, I'll say.
Oh
But they
my.
also have something else better to sell, and that's Drake Maye.
Right.
Right.
And
Mhm.
and some receivers watching him this year, watching what he is, seeing what he is,
Mhm.
if they're convinced that the team is going to spend money or is going to make the proper moves to make them more successful or give Drake Maye even more of a chance to succeed.
Mhm.
If the Patriots are paying 15% above, perhaps these free agents will come here. You just have to hope that they're the guys who are protectors, like left tackles, as opposed to trying to buy right tackles to play left tackle. I mean,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, I mean, but that's for me. That's why, like you said, you mentioned Drake May being a big selling point now, and obviously, like he's become the best player on the team, in a short amount of time. Him and Christian Gonzalez, in my opinion. But like this is why, like me and Mike had it back and forth all year. But like this is why I wanted Drake May to start from the beginning, because I'm like, listen, even if you're not going to win a lot of games, get as much tape on him as possible, so that you can say, excuse me, so that you can say, hey, they may, okay, I can see myself here. I can do this. Okay, we win this game from here. We win that game. So it's like that. That's how I saw
Yeah.
it. But you alluded to the cap space a few moments ago. So I think it's they have over 130 million.
132
132
at
million.
last look. Yeah.
Yep.
Who at the wide receiver position? Because that's always the biggest thing that we're looking for. Outside of line help. Who were some targets as you would look at that you would
Higgins, for sure. But I just want to rewind for 1/2 second.
Mhm.
Again, not to defend Elliott Wolf, because I do
Mhm.
think he could have done better. But their areas of need last year, whether it was receiver or left tackle, the free agent classes weren't great in those in those areas. There's only like a select few, and that was a select few. Was it Tyrone Smith wasn't going to come here?
Right.
He's a veteran who wants money and doesn't want to end his career on a loser team. So I mean, there was just the better players weren't, they couldn't be competitive, with them. I think the free agent market next year for both wide receiver and tackle or left tackle will be better. Chris Godwin is another wide receiver. You just need some semblance of a number one. And again, because it slots the other guys better,
Right.
as opposed to Kendrick Bourne seeing the top cornerback, or Pop Douglas going against the top cornerback on the other team and being shut out. Well, they get to go against the number 2 guy or the number 3 guy. It just slots them better if you have that one stud. So, and I think they get that. I do think they do get that. And I do think, given all the outrage over the missteps with trying to have right tackles play left tackle and yada yada yada, I think they'll figure that out too. And
Well,
if they don't, oh boy.
obviously
Yeah,
they saw the need for wide receiver the same way that you just described. Once they were out on Ridley, they made a concerted effort to draft wide receivers. My big thing, though, Karen, this is
And they
where
also went for the San Francisco guy.
well, when are you?
Right,
Yep.
Brandon Ayuk. But
Yep.
again, then they found out Brandon Ayuk had no intention of coming to them, no matter how much money they were throwing or whatever it was. So again, that's the position they're in.
The real question, though, right? This is where I need you, as always. This is my yearly Karen, like, stop me from jumping moment.
Yes.
They drafted what should two top wide receivers prospects that neither appeared to be able to catch or stay on the
Yeah.
field.
Stay on side or
Why
any of
can't
those
we
things.
draft skill position players? Why?
Yeah, I don't have that answer, but I don't I'm not ready to give up on either one yet. I
Oh,
think
oh
no,
no.
well, put it this way. I think Polk they've been playing out of in the wrong position, and I think he's more suited to play in the slot.
Yeah.
But for whether it's Van Pelt or the wide receivers coach, Tyler, I can't think of his last name right now. Having him again, when you're a rookie, you want to be in the spot you're usually in, and he hasn't been there, and it's messed with him. Okay. I think Baker has a ton of talent, and they haven't been able to harness it. They haven't, and part of it's on him because I don't think he knows the playbook, or he tends to be in the wrong spot. Neither of these kids seems to understand spacing in routes. They always seem to be in a place where they shouldn't be.
Mm,
That part goes back to coaching.
okay, right.
So perhaps if they tweak the coaching staff in that area, uh, that might help those kids, or they're just going to turn out like Tyquan Thornton.
Aaron Dobson.
Right,
Yeah.
but it's been the last quarter of a century. It's been like that. We
Yeah.
can't even say that it's been. I mean, from the Bethel Johnsons to Chad Jackson's, like Chad Jackson at the top, like that was brutal.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Aaron Dobson, like you name it, like it's never like you remember it was
Yeah.
certain moments the guys had, but they cannot get that right,
Well,
and it's wild because like a team like Pittsburgh in the Tomlin era, they just spit out wide receivers.
I
Like it
know
just
it. I would like
no,
steal someone from that organization to
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, please,
but
please.
here's the thing. So Belichick left, but the people who scout didn't leave.
Right.
And
Right.
okay. And Elliott was in there. Matt Groh was in there. Their
Mhm.
scouts were still in there. And while Belichick had the final say on the Tyquan Thorntons of the world, or whoever, N'Keal Harry especially,
Over DK Metcalf.
and
And
supposedly
AJ Brown.
supposedly this group didn't want him to take N'Keal Harry. But I have to believe some of these other people that they've taken in the second round, third round, again, these are the same people doing the evaluating and picking.
So yes, so I'm glad you brought that up because another one of the emphasis that Mike and I have talked about throughout the season. Um, I didn't believe this was year one of the rebuild. Mike says this is year one of the rebuild because it's like, oh, Brady's fully gone, Belichick's gone. But you just helped make my point. There's still too many people that were part of Belichick's regime for it to be completely year one. When you still
Yeah.
have Matt Groh, you still have Elliott, you still have guys that were there, they still have his philosophies. You needed to clean
Right.
house completely, in my opinion.
Right.
And I think that's part of the reason why
And
there's
the Crafts weren't willing to do that because
yeah,
Why?
that's
why
they, so I think they thought if these people got out from under Bill's
Chad.
control,
Mhm.
yeah, that perhaps that they would grow on their own, or they would evolve into being good people, having learn from him, but not having to have him dictate you know
Yeah.
picks and things like that after Bill makes a phone call to one of his buddies in college football and decides to, you know, go over the head of his head scouting's, whatever the report says, Bill's going to do his own thing. Well, I know Elliott has come in and put in a new system of how they scout. It's a whole new way of doing it, and maybe they just haven't totally adjusted to that. But guess what? You can't keep failing drafts. You
Right.
know, that's poison for any football team. These drafts are how teams improve and get better.
But
And you know, they just can't miss as much as they've been missing. Or again, the Crafts are going to have to step in and clean house.
yeah, I'm with option number 2, clean house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But they
gotcha.
Well,
haven't. But the other problem is, you know, because they didn't interview anyone. Well, I guess they interviewed for Elliot's post
Yeah,
before he got it. But interviews are important because you gain wisdom talking to people, or
right.
perhaps see that your methods are outdated or your methods can improve, or you could also find out how you're perceived in the scouting or this community, whatever it is. Interviews are knowledge, whether you're going to hire the person or not. It's
Yep.
information, and to have them just kind of dismiss that, I think, is coming back to haunt them a little bit.
It it feels like they insulated themselves, right, from the rest of the NFL because of the 20 years they had with Bill. They thought that they could just keep pumping up people that worked under him. But how much of it do you think goes back to your original or one of your points that you made a little bit earlier on was with Gerard not having a ton of coaching experience or actually any coaching experience outside of Belichick, not a big network. How hard of a task would it be to completely rebuild your scouting organization under a guy that doesn't have that many contacts, doesn't know what he's looking for?
Yeah. Well, there's the rub right
Right,
there, you know? But again, they haven't done their homework to know, you know, who's respected in the scouting community, who's a possibility. I mean, I don't even know if they know possibilities for any of these roles,
right,
but
right? But basically they had to rely on Elliott, who's been around. I mean, he was with Green Bay, he was with Detroit, I think with Cleveland. He's been around. At least he has a little bit of experience and he does know people. And I think basically the Crafts had to rely on Elliott to kind of, make, the scouting staff. And again, he's changed their whole grading system. And also Elliott to provide coaches for
right.
the offensive side of the ball. And that's what they relied on, basically.
Something that Ray brought up earlier in the season, and I wanted to bring it up now because I think it really ties into this conversation is what how important do you think would be for Gerard to become best friends with a guy like Robert Saleh to then
Mm.
use Robert Saleh's contacts with everyone from San Francisco to get
Yeah.
their offensive contacts. Like he needs this is now where he like there are so many people out there. It doesn't matter. I don't want Robert Saleh as a head coach. If you want to bring him in as someone to talk about the defense with, but just more so, it feels like Mayo needs mentors. And there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunities in the league right now with head coaches either that will be fired or have been fired that have deep wells. So
Mm.
how does he go about doing that? What's the first step?
Well, I mean, and he started to do it like at the combine, where all these people are gathered, right? Or at these type of things, or at the league meetings where all of these coaches, all of these staffs are there, or mostly at the combine. That's where you get to know people,
mm,
mostly. Um, and he started to do that last year, but again, that's such a small
Right.
small sample size of people that he's just sort of getting inroads, and chatting with, talking about beliefs and whatnot, that
mhm,
he's just starting to get that network, because he certainly doesn't have it right now. The other thing is, um, you have to look at, you know why would Robert Saleh come here, right? or why would somebody who was just fired and is looking to kind of rebuild himself or get himself back in that, why would they come to a team that's rebuilding? Again,
I
Well,
mean,
that's one of
if you can write the ship here, you can write it anywhere. That's I mean, to
right.
me, that's the selling point. Like that's how I see it personally. I mean, I'm not usually the half glass full when it comes to stuff like that, but in that moment, if you can rewrite, if
Well,
you can,
it's true, but it's like, but who's going to get the credit? And again, you have to look at credit. If I'm a defensive, and this was before now, with
Mhm.
Belichick here, anyone on the defensive side, like everyone always said, well, Belichick's still the mastermind. Belichick is still making the game plans. Belichick is still the guy you see on the sideline talking to the players. And that's why, some of these guys haven't got chances. But then when they did, Matt Patricia fell on his face,
Mhm.
right?
Well,
Yep.
So, but not everyone, because, I think, well, Brian Flores didn't last long as a head coach in Miami, but I think people are seeing that he has value as a defensive coach, as a defensive coordinator. But again, I think a lot of people were leery because they just figured that Belichick ran the whole thing, and
Mhm.
yeah, but that's not the
and
case here, as evidenced by the 13 games this season. Like this defense is
Yeah,
not good.
everything's like they need all help they can get, and once again, you don't see too many leaps from a D line coach to
yeah.
to the coordinator. So I don't know. I just think there's a lot of things they just didn't do due diligence on, and because of that, they're suffering from it. So I hope that they, 'cause, everything's
Well,
oh yeah, in a year two. How do we know that? How do we know you're gonna be back in year
you
two?
know what's interesting? Mayo's lone hire was Covington for his
Yeah,
coaching staff.
Right.
Everybody else came from honest to God.
yeah.
Everybody else,
He's looked absolutely lost.
even his defensive line coach was a connection of Elliott's.
Yeah,
So, or the guy that replaced,
yeah. Mhm.
Covington. Although I think he probably did hire Hightower too, but um, but Mayo was not responsible for anyone except of a significant role, e- except Covington.
But I
So
just think
kind of like Kraft. Is he going to dump Covington?
well, if you just look at what worked here at first, right? That first
Mhm.
part of our dynasty, and I hate calling back to it, but it's
Mhm.
Belichick knew what at that point in time, what his strengths and weaknesses were. So he brought in Charlie Weiss. He brought in Romeo Cornell. Like that
Yep.
was Romeo's defense and Charlie's offense, and Bill was just the ringleader. They need to set up Mayo to do something similar, right? So having a
Exactly.
guy like Salah, who, by the way, has a very craft friendly contract because the Jets will be paying him for the next two
Right.
two years.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Why
Yep.
not?
The other part of that, in the older days anyway, when Belichick first started and had Charlie and had Romeo, he always had people underneath
Yeah.
them who are being mentored or being groomed to be the next guy if
Right.
each one left. There was always a successor. Eric Mangini, Josh McDaniels, whoever it was,
Brian
Bill
Dable.
O'Brien. There was somebody, and in that way, because again, it's like you're having depth on your coaching staff. If someone leaves, the next guy, it's the next man up to take over
Right.
the role.
Right.
But by doing that, also, you're not changing your systems every year, and having and the players aren't having to learn a new system every year. And I know Brady talked about that. Yes, he lost Charlie, but the guy who replaced Charlie, was a student of that same offense. And the offense didn't change. The only changes were the tweaks that Brady and whoever made to that base offense or that same offense. And over years, it just got more complicated and complicated. But Brady didn't have to learn anything new. It was the same offense. Same thing with the guys on defense. It was the same basic, system, with wrinkles added in, but you weren't, again, the learning curve, having to learn the complexities of these things wasn't as difficult. Where you saw it was difficult for new guys coming in, Chad Ochocinco looking at this offense and going, huh? But some guys couldn't adapt. It was
Yeah.
too complex, or since they weren't in it from the start, it was hard to pick up midway through, or as the playbooks got more complex.
So I do want to actually have some positive talk in this conversation. We will.
What, this hasn't been positive?
and here is the segue. Obviously,
Right.
we know that, and you saw you wrote about it on your report card for MassLive, right? It's Drake. They have their guy. Drake is the guy. Because you have such great connections and conversations with everyone from the team. What are some of the biggest differences between Drake and Mac from both like a leadership perspective and a coach and a coaching perspective that you've noticed, that you've heard?
Mm.
The reputation he had was, he was really smart, could make quick decisions and quick reads, and could get rid of the ball quickly. So he was the prototype for that Brady, the offense that had been carried on through the years, because mentally he could handle it. And he also had a very quick release, and he was fairly accurate in, 5 to 10 yards, 15 yards out. Okay. But that was, and we saw how Josh McDaniels was able to utilize that in Mac's rookie year, and Mac looked good. He was a Pro Bowler.
A Pro Bowler.
I'd say
Yeah.
he's a Pro Bowler. But I mean, I think again, in that offense with the right personnel, they figured Mac could succeed. But here's the difference. When you don't have an offensive line, when you don't have weapons who can separate, when you need your quarterback to make the people around you better, that was not Mac's strong suit. Enter Drake Maye. Number one, his arm is it's like night and day. I mean, for Drake to be able, Mac tried to roll right and throw left.
Often.
Yeah, and he never should have, because that's not his wheelhouse. That's not his ability.
Yeah.
Whereas you watch Drake Maye roll right and throw left accurately and with mustard on the ball, huge. That is huge, a huge difference. His ability to throw the ball downfield, another huge difference. His ability to take off at the right time and kind of know and have a better sense of the pocket and the feel of the pocket to know when to take off, as opposed to every single time when the rush comes. His pocket awareness and sense, again, is so much better than Mac Jones' ability. His ability to throw guys open,
Right,
because of his arm and because of his, again, it's like a field awareness that he has. Knowing where he can read a defense. He'll know where the defenders are, and he'll know where to put the ball before the receiver even gets there. I mean, those are kind of special.
Yep.
Special skills. I mean, talking to Austin Hooper is like blown away by how good he is at stuff like that at age 22. And, he tells me I've played with quarterbacks much older who've been in the league much longer who don't have that ability.
Mm-hmm.
To, again, put the ball where only the receiver can catch it. Brady had that ability.
Mm.
I'm not comparing the two, but there are, again, certain things about Drake Maye that are so advanced for his age. And in comparison with Mac never had those skills.
Right.
Yeah.
Drake does.
No. Yeah, no, I mean, it became pretty obvious that he had plateaued. I mean, talking about Mac after his rookie year. Right now, obviously, when you have them much change, and obviously, I think maybe that's what they're trying to do now. They don't want to have them much change because of what happened with Mac Jones a few years back, where you're bringing in Matt Patricia, you bring in Bill O'Brien in his third.
Yeah, I mean, Mac was sabotaged. There's no question
for
about that.
sure.
But beyond that, again, his ceiling, Drake's ceiling, is so far above
Right.
Mac's ceiling, and that's the biggest difference is where their ceilings are. And I, if Mac wasn't ruined, he might have been a decent quarterback
Yeah.
or a backup quarterback, but he got wrecked so much that he's even not good in Jacksonville.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, Sunday, I was like, wow. I mean, not even wow, because you're not surprised anymore when he has a subpar performance, but it was just like,
Yeah.
wow, like I didn't know it was still this bad.
He could, yeah,
Listen, that's been Elliott Wool's best move,
yeah.
Yes.
Well,
but by far. So thank you. That
Well-
I was like, he won the offseason just for that. In that regard, but so I know obviously you're down there weekly, and you're in there, but what has been so we've heard reports about how they've been kind of joyful at times in the locker room after games, but just what do you feel is like the overall mood of the team right now? Because obviously it hasn't been much success, excuse me, this year, but just can you speak to the overall feeling of the locker room going into this for the final quarter of the year?
well, I think the best thing that Gerard Mayo had going for them, at least to this point, is that the players were still playing. I mean, they were still trying to win games. They were still fighting. There was no real give up, where some teams that were this bad would just sort of pack it in and kind of lay an egg every week. But I mean, the Miami game in Miami wasn't wasn't good, but and you thought that would be the turning point where they would just go downhill all the way. But they've they were in the LA game. They're in the Indy game. They should have won that game. But the point being is the players are still, putting out effort
Mhm.
in these games. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they're all saying the right things, how it is from here on out after finally getting their break. Will they really come back recharge, or or is it still the start of an early vacation? Are they planning their vacation? So I think that part is still to be determined, as far as how the locker room is or isn't.
Is the way that Drake carries himself on the field enough to keep the team motivated throughout the course of the year? Because it feels like to me that's what it
It
is.
might be. Yeah. Well, that's the other part. Again, if you're comparing Mac to Drake, Drake just seems to have much more command of the offense, command of the huddle, respect of the huddle, than Mac ever had. And again, he's won these guys over.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And some of that is his kind of aw shucks personality, but it's also him taking accountability for mistakes, and not just his mistakes, other people's mistakes. He won't throw the offensive lineman under the bus. He won't throw receivers running the wrong route under the bus. He's pretty savvy on knowing how to be the leader of the team and how to be the quarterback. And again, it probably goes back to having a father who was a coach, older brothers who were very good in sports. And it's hard. I think he's picked up some things along the way, but he seems like a natural leader. And that's so important for the player who's playing quarterback.
Yeah, I think the last time that the three of us were on this show, when we were making a comp about Mac Jones, we all come to the agreement that at his best, he could probably be like a good Chad Pennington, right?
Well, yeah.
I think at Drake's best, he could be a Lions Matthew Stafford. And that
Mhm.
ceiling, like that difference right there is everything.
Yeah.
And it shows. It absolutely shows.
Mhm.
So like to follow up on Ray's question, like with 4 games left, and your answer cannot be wins. So remember that. What is the most important thing for this team to focus on over the last 4 games of the season?
Progress. And that starts with Drake. It's also finding out more about, some of these players who we've already written off, like the 2 young wide receivers. They need intel on that. Caden Wallace is coming back. Can he help on the line? Perhaps not on the left side as a tackle, but perhaps on the right side. Because all of this information is going to go into their decision making in pursuit of players in the off season. They have to know if their draft picks are really probably headed in the bus category, or if there really is hope for them, put in the right positions to succeed, having them, not playing out of position, having them not having a right tackle play left tackle, not having a slot guy play out on the, on out on the boundary.
Mhm.
I mean, they need to put these guys in positions to succeed and see if they can succeed. They also have to see, um, again, who's checked out or who's still checked in.
Mhm.
And I think that's an important thing in terms of evaluating players.
Mhm.
You know, i- do you want guys who are going to check out because you're 3-10? Is that the guys you want to build around? Or is it around the guys who are really trying hard to make plays and do things? So I think those things are important. But again, I go back to Bill Parcells' first year and Bill Belichick's first year. Those weren't great years. I mean, I think Parcells' team might have started out 1-11 or 1-10, 1-11, but they won their last 4 games. And it wasn't necessarily about winning. It was how they played and how they looked. Belichick's first year, they were 5-11, but I think they won 3 of their last 6 games. And it was how they played, how they competed in those final games that gave both the fandom hope, but mostly it gave the players hope about the next season. There was a little bit of momentum for them carrying into the next season, thinking we're not going to go through another 3 and whatever season. It's going to be just getting them to think it's going to be better. If they lose out and get bombed in all those games, well, that's another story, and it won't be a good one.
Right. No, I totally agree with that. I think, I mean, obviously, yeah, winning should always be the goal, right? And that's a cliche answer that all of them give. But I'm with you when it comes to the progress. Like, I want to see them focus on being more aggressive, right? And that's something that we brought up earlier on the show. That that has to happen. Like, you can't, the Tennessee game
Yeah.
stands out for me this year, right? You find a way to score on the final drive. And he said, "Oh no, I'd rather go
Yeah.
in overtime." And I'm like, "No, like
Yeah.
just go out there, find a way to win the game because you never know
Right.
what that might have done for the locker room had you gone out and won the game." So, yeah, I wanted to focus on being more aggressive. And I want to see Alex Van Pelt say, and just I want him to have a pulse. I want him to say, okay, if this is working where Drake is going crazy and just let him rip. Or if Gibson and Stevenson are going crazy, let them go crazy. Like don't have to say, well, shoot, we ran 8 times in a row, maybe we gotta pass it, or we passed 10 times in a row.
Yeah.
Let's run it, like just have the feel, find the feel, keep building the culture, and if you build it, they will come. So
Yeah. I think we've actually seen more from Alex Van Pelt and their offense in recent weeks.
yes,
Yep.
It's not this boring run, throw, run. I mean, they've tried to do things. They've tried to open up the offense. But again, going back to where we started, it still ultimately comes down to talent. Coaches can only, do certain things, only do what their talent is capable of doing.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And if you don't have the talent, to zig or zag or do what the Chiefs do, or have plays that Buffalo has, teams that have talent. If you don't have the talent, you're kind of handcuffed as to how creative you can be. Or maybe you try to be creative and it's just like, they just can't do it.
Yeah, but to your
They
point,
just can't pull it off.
to your point though, like I say this in Ray, like his blood pressure spikes. Like there is a difference between a good loss and a bad loss. And I would just point
Oh,
to
yeah.
their loss
Yeah.
against the Rams looks better now after what we saw Sunday night.
Yeah.
When they blew out, when they did what they did
When they-
against Buffalo,
Yeah.
right? So like if you see a team that
And it was Buffalo making a bonehead play,
I know,
coaching staff making a
but if
bonehead play at the end.
if over these last 4 games you can be the little engine that couldn't, right? But you try your hardest, the effort is
Yeah.
there. You're going to see, hopefully, to your point, in free agency, how could that coach still get those players to play like that when they had nothing to play for? I want to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Dre continues to get better and better and better and better. And these guys are going, he might be kind of cool to catch passes for him, play for, you
Yeah.
know? Or they're going somewhere because they got this kid, right?
Yep.
Put it this way. Do you think, well, with the exception of the income tax or the tax situation, are teams going to be more inclined to go to Tennessee now or come to Boston based on the quarterback situation? Right?
So it should be New England, 100%.
Right.
listen,
Right.
Will Levis, come on, let's
Right.
Well, I mean, that
income tax or not, Will Levis is not. He's about to become a Jag down there in Tennessee. He's not the guy of the future. He's just not.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying, But they lost out on Ridley to Tennessee.
right.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure he's regretting.
Do you get? I mean,
like it doesn't make sense.
and I don't know if I'd want him. But does Keenan Allen take a look at the Patriots now after seeing what he did in Chicago and say, you know what? I think Drake actually might be the guy.
better than this guy. Well, and again, I can see differences. Again, I'm not. I don't think Caleb Williams is buried.
No.
But the biggest difference I see between the two is that, again, it's that pocket sense, and awareness. Drake knows 2 things better than Caleb, or shows. He moves out of the pocket or runs at the right time. He gets rid of the ball quickly, whereas Caleb Williams is sitting there. Again, Drake's guys aren't getting open, and when Drake knows they're not getting open, he'll run or he'll scramble out and throw the ball away. Caleb holds on and holds on and holds on, sack. Holds on, sack. Or not having an awareness that the clock is running out and you can't throw the ball deep.
Well, I think that's just the difference of the team, though, right? Is like we talked about this earlier on in the season. Is it felt like Caleb was being brought into a situation where, listen, like we know how good you are, but you don't have to be that way in order for us to win. Just don't lose the game for us. Whereas in New England, it's like, man, Drake, we need you. Like you need to do whatever you can do in order for us to win the game. It's like he has that little Drew Bledsoe from 01 in his ear saying, no, F that, just go out there and sling it. Just go sling it.
Right. And the only issue Drake's coming up with in that scenario of he has to be the guy, he's made a few too many turnovers,
Sure.
Yeah.
right? You know, again, trying to do things either in the final minutes of games or you know, not being careful with the ball when he's trying to elude the rush. But the other beauty or other really good thing about Drake, he's definitely someone who learns from his mistakes. And he's somebody who really tries not to be the repeat offender.
Right.
You'll see him make a certain mistake one week and that mistake is gone the next week. So he really tries, uh, he is trying to get better, but he is also keenly aware that he needs personally to be aggressive for this team to have a chance. And he understands that. He's just trying to define those parameters, right?
Yep.
Can I get away with sticking the ball in there? Can I get away with doing this? Can I get away with, okay, it didn't happen that time or that got picked off. That's not going to happen again. But you don't want him to get like Mac Jones and be afraid of everything, of every single thing.
Everything.
Right. So he still has that mentality. And I just hope, I hope things don't happen in the last four games to change that mentality.
Right.
Yeah.
One last. Go
Beautiful.
ahead, Ray, and I'll
No,
close it out.
because okay, that was beautiful. I'm like, I just want Drake to keep getting better and keep progressing, keep growing. Like I said, he's been the gem, in the season. So I just want to see him keep handling business. So he's been
Mm.
All right, so we're recording this Monday night, December 9th. We are on Belichick watch. So the last question I have for you, Miss Karen, would be Bill to the University of North Carolina. What does that say about how the NFL teams feel about him and his approach if he's going to go to a program like that instead of going after Don Shula's record, which he is 15 wins away from breaking?
Mm. It sure appears like the NFL is done with the Bill Belichick way or I think owners are too skittish or nervous to have somebody come in and take control, especially someone his age,
Right.
whose shelf life it's not like he's going to be the coach 5-10 years or 20 years like he was in 20 plus years like he was in New England. It's a short window, and it's a short window to kind of blow up your organization for. It had to be for a certain circumstance where an owner thought Belichick will put them over the top. It can't be a rebuilding situation because that eliminates a ton of teams. But it'd have to be a team that's relatively close, that you insert Belichick, who's not going to lose games because of stupid coaching decisions. Hello, Buffalo. um, he's not, Bill's not going to make those type of mistakes. He is still, in my estimation, a great coach. The problem comes into play with control, wanting his people, wanting it his way, wanting total control or just control enough. And teams with established structures or established GMs want no part of that.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're all trying to protect their jobs.
Yep.
And again, if you don't have a strong owner who's going to move in and say, I'm going to let Belichick do what he wants, it's not going to happen. And it doesn't. And it's apparently Bill has gotten that message for him to be, or he's calling teams bluff by getting this close to being the guy at UNC. And that still very well could happen.
I mean, for me, I still think the NFL is still in play. I just think that he's not bringing it up. Clearly, him and Pat McAfee have built some type of rapport where he feels comfortable enough to
Mm.
share that. It's kind of become the new Michael Lombardi, so to speak.
Yeah.
Who becomes his lackey, so to speak. I know, Mike. I know.
Mm. Mm.
So that's kind of what we see in there. But um, I still think like a team like Philly is in play if they don't do well in the postseason. Once again, I know they've been winning a lot of games, and I know they
Yeah.
struggled against Carolina this past
Yeah.
weekend. But like if they don't get to the Super Bowl and like I said, or win it, I could totally see them, on Black Monday saying, "Hey, Coach Sirianni, we thank you for your services, but they no longer need it." And on that Tuesday, and it won't be on a paper napkin. He'll be the new coach of.
Well, Ray, that to me is like the perfect situation
Right.
for him.
Yeah,
But is he going to wait that long? And what if like Philadelphia wins? Then he's somehow wins,
yeah.
and
I mean,
and
but to me, the UNC thing should be there because it's like it's not like in February.
the UN no, they colleges have to have their coaches now because the portal opens.
Got you right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's right.
Because you can't be waiting around. I mean, kids are going to be in the portal and leaving if you don't have a coach. Why are they going to stay
But
if you don't know who the coach is or
is he really thick-headed enough to say, unless you give me everything that I want, full control, I'm not going to go after Don Shula's record?
Well, I know he's stubborn. I know he's arrogant, and it surprises me. And again, why can't people compromise? Why can't he compromise if he just coach,
Yeah,
Right.
or
he would be here. He would still be here.
or why won't these prospective teams, work out a compromise with Belichick, with the people that are in place that they don't want to lose jobs? Why can't they just come to some kind of compromise on the power issue? It's like a perfect job for Belichick, Chicago,
I know.
right? So, but I don't even think they're even thinking of him at all. They're going to go with the Detroit guy,
Yeah,
Well, with the way
the
that they
offensive
pay,
coordinator.
the way they
or
pay
even
skill
the
players.
guy from gosh, what's his name? The coordinator from Houston, OC guy. I think his name is Bobby Slowick. I think he's someone
Yeah.
be an option for some teams as well.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. Like
Well, how
Belichick.
about Jacksonville,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
So my knowledge is,
You want
I
to go
mean,
wreck Mac again?
he's good with. Well, Mac's gone after the year. Mac only on a 1-year deal, but he and the owner, Shad Khan, get along well.
hmm
So if you're Khan and you're saying, okay, Belichick's coming, he's going to bring McDaniels, who will fix Trevor Lawrence. He will make our defense elite, and we'll play like we're supposed to play and not be this pathetic team that we are right now. And again, I think, a place like Jacksonville, again, you have the quarterback,
hmm
you have a defense that's underachieving. Again, another
Yeah, you'll have other guys that want to play down there because they want to play for him.
right, and you have another perfect landing spot, and it just again, Doug Peterson isn't out yet, but the assumption is he is going to be out.
Yeah, he's
Again, there's just some of these situations that I just don't get.
I've also heard, though, and you're obviously the person that could verify this or not, that the linchpin in Jacksonville is John's son, Tony, and he doesn't want Bill to be there.
Yeah, I think he's their analytics guy.
Yeah, he's like that.
Honest to God.
You can't have two nepotism situations under one organization, right? So
Right. But again, to have those things block the potential of where you might be going,
Right. Right.
It just
I'm with you.
a little mind
But
blowing.
listen, if
Yeah.
and Philly says, "Listen, Bill, we want you to come in here, but you do not you get to cook the dinner, but you cannot pick the groceries."
Yeah.
Bill, you need to do it because I think he's a better coach than Don Shula. I didn't live through much of Don,
Yeah.
right? So like, beat that record. Do it. He deserves to do
I,
that.
I think Philly is the best one because I actually think Belichick respects Howie Roseman, who's
Yeah.
the GM there. I think perhaps that's where a compromise could come into play, about buying groceries and all,
Yeah.
and Bill's control, and maybe it's, they can work out something because Bill, I believe, well, he respects the owner, Jeffrey Lurie, has
Yep.
a good relationship with him, and he has my understanding, a good relationship with the GM. So, but again, that situation, Philadelphia is in first place in
Right.
the division, and they usually don't crap the bed till the playoffs. So we'll see again, because, I don't think their head coach is in any great shape.
Right. I mean, and Bill
Right,
has
that's what-
leverage
yeah,
right
he-
now.
yeah.
Sorry, Ray, but Bill has
Say-
leverage right now. But if he doesn't accept that UNC job by this time next week, he loses his leverage because every NFL organization will know that he's just pitting them against each other to get the best job.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And again, is he really, really gonna,
Well, I mean, we haven't brought this up. I mean, it's been said, but what if he goes to Vegas?
Oh, and he works for Tom? Yeah, that'll happen.
really?
I mean, it seems like the relationship has been repaired to an extent. So I mean, what? I
But
mean,
given that
Yeah.
Coach Prime, Dion is already lobbying Antonio Pierce to select either Travis Hunter or Shador, I think that means that Antonio Pierce is going to have a job as the head coach next year.
I don't think Prime cares whoever's there. He's just
Well, the other thing is, I think, and this is why Dallas might not be in play outside of Jerry Jones being a weirdo. I think Bill would like to stay on the East Coast. I don't think he wants to be out that far away from his root here,
Yeah.
or So, that's why Philadelphia would be great. The New York, either New York job, although you can eliminate the Jets. And I'm not sure what's happening with Dayball, if he's in or out. Jacksonville works. I mean, I think Bill just got a house in a place in Florida, but in Tampa. And that's not that close, but close enough,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Chicago would be I think the furthest west, right? Because he does have ties to the Detroit Lions. Like he
Right.
did work for them back in the day. So he'll go to the Midwest.
Right. Well, like Chicago too. And again, I think Bill's a big historian. George Halas, the Halas family. I think that comes into play too with
Yep.
him and where he might want to go. So, but hey, we might find out this week that he's going to UNC.
Well, Miss Karen Guregian, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. This is always my favorite show of the year. Thank you for all the great reporting, everything that you do over at MassLive, everything you've done over the years. And I can't wait to have you on to discuss how the Patriots are going to fuck up the draft. But until then, for Hollywood Rayshon Buchanan, for Karen Guregian, this is Michael Marcangelo saying thank you so much for listening to Missing the Point. We'll talk to you next week. No. Don't touch that fucking button, Craig.
Yes.
That was awesome. And
Yes.
17, we kept it down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
If
we're
you-
good.
yes, sir,
We're
yeah.
good. I hope I didn't disappoint. I hope I came with
No, you
with
did great.
knowledge.
Awesome as always.
I hope I came with
Brought the heat.
the good stuff. The good stuff for you guys, But yeah, it's going to be all interesting to see how it all plays out. I think the Crafts probably have gotten the message, but again, we'll see. You thought they got the message last year, but
Rod, I mean, you
That-
even said in your report card, he said to become the king of walkbacks. He said back up.
yeah, the league leader in lockback.
Yeah, back up the Brinks truck. And oh no, I didn't mean that.
Yeah.
I just meant like,
Yeah.
come on, dude. Just sign the players.
Yeah. Now here's someone. I mean, he hasn't quite learned yet. like Drake is learning from his mistakes on the field, and it's like, and it's stunning to me that like Gerard hasn't quite done the same. I mean, Gerard's a smart guy, and he's everywhere he's gone, every college, pros, coaching, not head coaching, but he's excelled and he's exceeded and he's like the smartest guy in the room, but he just hasn't quite, and he wants to be more transparent, but he hasn't been able to bridge between transparent and too transparent yet.
He just wants to be anti-Bill in every way.
Yeah.
It's
They
apparent.
don't sign all the guys that he had then. Don't do that. How about
Well,
that?
I mean, I'm with you.
I'm just saying.
This Bill thing's gonna be funny though. If he goes to UNC, like what a cop out. Just go be a head coach and nothing else in an NFL organization and get your win.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Compromise.
Right.
Or maybe he's like going to hold out until he has to compromise.
I mean,
get what he wants. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, clearly, and Craig, don't use this, but like he's used to compromise. I'm sure he goes to Chuck E. Cheese with his freaking girlfriend now. He doesn't want to go there. So like he should know how to be a head coach and just a head coach. I'm already going to say you can't use that. But yeah, I think so. You're my last show for a little while, Karen. I think you won't be my first show back, but thank you so much for everything.
You're welcome. Good luck with baby. Do you know this boy or girl?
Oh yeah, it's an Ivy. Yeah, so we get to pick down to everything. I know if he has a mole on his face. So he's a boy. His name is Braden.
Yep.
Braden, and he's nice. Big. He's a big boy. He's a big boy.
Big boy.
Big boy.
All right. Well, now.
No, we didn't. But we didn't do that though. We didn't pick the gender, but you do all the testing, so like we know that it was the best egg.
Oh,
the best.
All right.
I've seen a lot of
all right. For my money, you're going to be a great father. How's that?
Oh God, thank you, Karen.
And I can't wait, and I can't wait to like take Braden to his baseball game at Fenway or football game at Gillette, or those are all going to be great.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Probably not the baseball thing until John Henry sells, but it's a core memory. Thank you again.
Hey.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got to run, but get back a hold of me, and whenever you need me, I'll be there.
Perfect. Well, yes. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Oh, happy holidays.
Yeah, same to you.
Happy holidays and happy New Year.
All those things. All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So Ray wanted to do